This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Wendy Griffith. A top U.S. health official tells lawmakers today that the worst is yet to come with a coronavirus outbreak and that the virus is, quote, 10 times more lethal than the flu. The White House continues to make battling the spread of the disease a top priority. And the administration also hopes to inoculate the economy. Dale Hurd has the latest.
With the number of cases of coronavirus in the U.S. now more than 1,000, government officials, businesses, schools, and even political candidates are taking drastic measures to contain the virus. Some universities are going to online classes, and airlines are reducing domestic flights. On the campaign trail, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden both canceled rallies. And New Rochelle, New York, has been declared America's first containment zone.
It is a dramatic action. This is literally a matter of life and death.
The containment zone is a 1-mile radius around the Young Israel Synagogue, where dozens of people were exposed by a sick attorney. Dr. Anthony Fauci at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases warned the rest of the nation to take precautions.
It doesn't matter if you're in a state that has no cases or one case. You have to start taking seriously what you can do now.
Vice President Pence says over 1 million more test kits will be distributed to local areas by the end of the week. And President Trump is urging Americans to stay calm.
This was unexpected. It will go away.
Stocks gained almost 5% on Wall Street Tuesday as the Dow jumped more than 1,100 points, recovering about half of the market's historic losses from the day before. But the market is expected to remain volatile. President Trump is proposing a possible payroll tax cut to stimulate the economy, and it's likely the Treasury Department will extend the April 15 tax deadline to help individuals and businesses.
We're also going to be talking about hourly wage earners getting help so that they can be in a position where they're not going to ever miss a paycheck.
Economic advisor Larry Kudlow says the cut could last through the end of the year.
The payroll tax holiday is a bold move. It's a very bold move.
But Democratic leaders came out against it.
The administration seems to believe that the answer to any problem is another tax cut.
Most states aren't seeing the high number of cases like New York or California, but they're preparing for the worst. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. Well, for the millions of Americans with anxiety disorders, the coronavirus represents a very real mental health concern. For the rest of the populations, it's still a challenge right now to avoid alarmist thinking. And joining us now is Regent University's Dr. Daniel Holland, who teaches in the School of Psychology and Counseling and has worked as a therapist for decades. Dr. Holland, thanks so much for being with us right now.
Thank you, Wendy.
You know, obviously, a lot of anxiety right now, a lot of fear out there. In fact, I was talking to my sister last night who lives in D.C., and she has a 12-year-old son who has asthma, and she says, I had a panic attack just about sending him to school. You know, what if he gets it? Yeah. And even though she's a Christian and a total believer, but right now, we're all prone to perhaps overreact, aren't we?
Absolutely. It's so easy to see the quantity of information coming in and the intensity of the information and have that anxiety rise up. The anxiety center of our brain works on emotional triggers. It doesn't work on data. So when we get triggered and we get some fear or concern, the part of the brain that's active is not the part that makes the best rational decisions. It's the part that reacts in a safety mode. And so what we see a lot from this is that a lot of individuals will see this information and that part of the brain get active and immediately react in a way where they feel there's a crisis at a level that maybe there isn't a crisis at this point. You
know, what's been helping me is prayer, of course, and reading Psalm 91 out loud. What are some other things that you can recommend to those watching right now who may be experiencing this fear as well?
Oh, there's so many great things we can do for anxiety, and specifically in this situation. First of all, recognize it's anxiety. Yeah. When we realize this is not data-driven, the feelings that I'm having, they are feelings that I'm having.
Right.
And then once we can kind of control that and realize this is an emotional response, a trigger that I'm experiencing, then we can switch gears and focus on what it is we actually can control. You know, there's things we can control around this issue, and there's certain things that we can't control. So we need to direct our energy to the things that we can actually have influence over. You know, some of the protocols that the CDC are mentioning and raising, these things we can actually do to help stop some spread of any of the sicknesses that are out there, including this one.
Like, you know, when you first came into the studio today, I wanted to reach out and shake your hand, but, you know, right now, we're not supposed to do that. And we were both good. We didn't do that.
We didn't. We were good.
We still said hello, of course. But, you know, I talked to my 81-year-old father today in West Virginia, and I'm like, Dad, how are you guys doing? We're hunkering down. We're not going anywhere. Of course, he was in the car on the way to the grocery store. But, you know, you got to have food. But, you know, I think that's the best thing you can do probably is if you don't have to go anywhere, don't go anywhere, right?
Yeah, just follow the protocols, do whatever you can do, and a lot of them will have an effect on all different things as far as influenza and other things as well, too. So, you know, looking at what we can do that is within our scope, our area of influence, what things we can actually change, directing our energy there and just managing our emotions to stay as calm as we can.
What about kids? They're watching the news too. They're taking all this in. What are some conversations that parents could potentially have with their children now?
With your children, you want to know what they know. So ask them some questions about what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they think is going on. You want to encourage, again, the things that are founded in the data, things that we know of now that would be helpful. And we want to help them stay away from some of the things that are just fear-based or things that are triggers for themselves. And that means if we as parents, if we can regulate our emotions and we can remain calm, we can help them to do the same just by being in their presence.
And fortunately, at least for right now, it seems like the coronavirus is not affecting children the way it is older adults. So that's the good news. Well, Dr. Daniel Holland, thank you so much for your insights. We appreciate it. Well, stay with us for the latest on the coronavirus as we continue to provide updates right here on the CBN News Channel and on the CBNnews.com. Well, Joe Biden came out with big wins in Tuesday's primaries, putting him on a clear path to the Democratic presidential nomination. The former vice president won in Michigan, Missouri, Mississippi, and Idaho. Biden leads Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders in the delegate race with 823 to Sanders' 663. During an appearance near his Philadelphia campaign headquarters, he said Tuesday's vote was another step closer to fighting against President Trump in the general election.
Tonight, we are a step closer to restoring decency, dignity, and honor to the White House. That's our ultimate goal.
Yes.
And at this moment, when there's so much fear in the country, and there's so much fear across the world, we need American leadership. We need presidential leadership that's honest, trusted, truthful, and steady. Reassuring leadership. If I'm given the honor of becoming your president, I promise you I'll strive to give the nation that very leadership.
For more political news and analysis, be sure to catch Faith Nation this evening, and you can watch it right here on the CBN News Channel. Well, for several elections, analysts have predicted a potential movement of African Americans away from the Democratic Party. While that's yet to happen in a major way, some say the 2020 presidential election could be different. Charlene Aaron shows us how a growing number of blacks are asking the question, what have Democrats done for us lately?
A recent poll found that 54% of African Americans believe the Democratic Party isn't paying enough attention to their needs. It's an issue leading a growing number to rethink their choices at the ballot box. For decades, African Americans have been a key voting bloc for Democrats. In 2016, 89% of black voters supported Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. Now, a movement called Blexit, which means the exit of black Americans from the Democrat Party, is encouraging African Americans to abandon the status quo. Conservative firebrand Candace Owens started the organization that now boasts chapters in several states.
Black Americans are waking up. They're realizing that they've been sleeping at the wheel. And really what I'm saying is just to embrace your futures. You can be in the driving seat of your future.
Danielle Robinson is a member of the North Carolina Blexit.
This is not a quiet time at all. It is an all-in time. And those that are fighting this battle, those of us that are part of Blexit, we are all in because we've got nothing to lose because we've lost too much already.
Robinson, a devout Christian, recently became a Republican. She says she's proud of specific inroads President Trump has made into the Black community. They include historically low unemployment for African Americans, prison reform, and allocating a record amount of federal money to historically Black colleges.
Regardless of if you like him or not, his results are undeniable. I never expected to have a president deliver in such a way.
Some liberals agree. Following the president's recent State of the Union address, CNN analyst Van Jones issued this warning to his fellow Democrats.
We got to wake up, folks. There's a whole bubble thing that goes on. We say, well, he said S-hole nations, therefore all Black people are going to hate him forever. That ain't necessarily so. And I think what you're going to see him do is say, you may not like my rhetoric, but look at my results, look at my record to Black people. And if he narrowcasts that, it's going to be effective.
Paris Denard of Black Voices for Trump says it's time for African Americans to compare the president's results to the lack of progress in big cities run by Democrats.
When you look at the impact on the ground, Baltimore and Detroit, Atlanta, there is high crime. There's a lot of problems that are there. But there's an opportunity that's growing because of President Trump. And I think more and more Black Americans are waking up to the fact that we might have to give Donald Trump another chance, and we might have to give the Republican Party, not just at the president, but down ballot, a first look.
Meanwhile, Robinson, who has faced backlash for her new political views, urges other African American believers to consider their values.
They have fooled us every election into voting against God or voting, diminishing freedom of religion, and they cause us to forget what's not working. And we're not doing that anymore. As a community, as Christians, we're coming into alignment.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Coming up, how today's culture is affecting the church and what Christians can do to remain faithful to God's Word. But before we go to the break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel. Now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
Welcome back. In recent years, cultural hot topics like same-sex marriage and gender identity have created ministry challenges for churches that want to remain faithful to Scripture and do a good job of loving their neighbor. Now, polyamory is the latest hot topic appearing on the horizon. And some experts say it's not too soon for church leaders to start thinking about it. Our Heather Sells spoke with best-selling author and speaker Dr. Preston Sprinkle, who heads the Center for Faith, Sexuality, and Gender on this topic.
First of all, explain, this is such a new term for so many. What is polyamory and how is it different from polygamy?
Well, polygamy is technically a part of polyamory. Polyamory just has to do with plural love, some kind of love relationship between or among more than two people. So polygamy typically, has to do with a man who has multiple wives. And in polygamous relationships, it's typically very dehumanizing towards the woman. The wives are treated more like property, whereas polyamory may also have one man and two women, but the two women may be in relationship with each other along with the man, but it typically is much more, for lack of better terms, egalitarian than traditional polygamy.
You've been one of the leaders who has been thinking about this, talking about it. Why do you think that now is the time for church leaders to start delving into this topic of polyamory?
I think now is the time because we have a history. The church has a history of being a little bit too late in conversations about sexuality, gender-related questions. I mean, a bulk of my ministry is focused on helping churches navigate LGBTQ-related questions. But man, that discussion's been going on for decades, and yet it's only really in the last few years that churches are starting to want to think through it on a more pastoral and theological level. So polyamory is alive and well. About 5% of the population is in a polyamorous kind of relationship. And pastors are coming to me often telling me that they're having polyamorous relationships, people who identify as poly coming to their church. So rather than, waiting for some incident to flare up at the church, but let's think through this ahead of time so that we can have a well-reasoned theological response to somebody who asks about the church's stance on polyamory.
All right, and I know we could talk about this next question for a long time, but just a nugget or two. What are some biblical principles that can help us frame this issue?
The main biblical principle on any kind of marriage or sexual relationship is rooted in Genesis 1 and 2. I mean, this is a fundamental passage about what it means to be human, what it means to be a sexual human, what it means to be married. Jesus, when he's engaging in conversations about marriage, he goes back to Genesis 1 and 2. Paul does the same. So what we see in Genesis 1 and 2 is that God created us male and female, and that marriage is, by definition, the coming together, a union between those two humans, a male and a female. So I think it's important to always, with any kind of ethical question, to go back to Genesis 1 and 2 as our foundation, and then see how Jesus does the same, how he goes back to Genesis 1 and 2, and how he looks forward to resurrection as kind of a framework for understanding Christian ethics.
All right. Well, Dr. Preston Sprinkle, I know a lot of people are surprised to be thinking about this, but something that it seems wise to think about. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Heather. Still ahead, a look at a docudrama that tells the true story of St. Patrick as we approach St. Patrick's Day.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone. I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Well, people around the world will paint their towns green to celebrate St. Paddy's Day next week, but few know the true story of the young bishop who left his home in Britain to bring the Christian faith to the Emerald Isle. CBN Films shares this amazing story in a new docudrama, I Am Patrick. Ephraim Grant takes us behind the scenes before the film hits theaters on St. Patrick's Day.
On, action!
To narrate in detail either the whole story of my labors or even parts of it would take a long time.
And so begins this look back at the life of St. Patrick in the film I Am Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland.
Cut! Cutter! Cut!
Jared Anderson is the writer and director.
You don't have to embellish the story of St. Patrick at all. I mean, it's such a dramatic story, such a powerful story. It's just a delight to be able to have a story like that that's true.
Patrick answers God's call and travels to Ireland to deliver the gospel to the pagan country, even enduring slavery.
People get a little lost with the legends and the myths about St. Patrick, and the real man, the real St. Patrick, is far more fascinating than the legend and myth. And in fact, I think the more human Patrick that people don't really know about is really far more inspirational.
To tell that inspirational true story.
My name is Robert McCormick and I am playing young Patrick in this film.
My name is Sean T. O'Malley and I am playing Middle Patrick.
I'm John Rhys-Davies and I play the older St. Patrick.
Jared casts 3 actors to play the leading role.
I mean, when you're casting, it's like a casting nightmare to have 3 different people you're trying to cast, but eye color, facial structure, they totally work. So on action, you can just look to there.
John Rhys-Davies, best known for his roles in Lord of the Rings and Indiana Jones, was initially only doing voice narration for the feature-length docudrama.
We never planned on having John Rhys-Davies actually play old Patrick, but after the voiceover record, it had to be him.
I was drawn to this project because I love the character of Patrick. I think he's a fascinating modern. Every time you come and look at that extraordinary life of his, you learn something else. You get more of the feel of the man. I know a little bit about Patrick and knew it before, but actually to shoot it in the sort of context that he knew and lived in is very remarkable. Coming to Ireland wasn't like coming as a tourist to visit the lovely castles and things like that. It was coming to hell. Human sacrifice, idolatry of the worst sort, endless enslavement. It was the apotheosis of human misery. And it took a very brave and remarkable man to come back into the certain jaws of death to try and change it.
Patrick's brave and bold story is one everyone on set takes lessons from.
From an actor's point of view, the internal struggle and the conflict is really interesting because on one hand, Patrick believes that he's come here to spread God's message, but on the other hand, he's facing some very real and dangerous obstacles.
It is true that not a lot of people know the story of St. Patrick. Even myself, reading the script, I found out stuff that I didn't know before. That is really, really interesting.
And there's one more interesting star in this film, and that's the country itself.
I think it's important to film in Ireland when you're doing a movie about St. Patrick because there's nowhere else that looks like Ireland. Plus, you know, when you're reaching out to an audience about St. Patrick, to not film in Ireland is almost a slap in the face. And we've had such a great crew, great cast. I would never have wanted to film this anywhere else.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Can't wait to see this. CBN Films tells the true story of St. Patrick in a docudrama, as you saw there, I Am Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland. And it hits theaters March 17th. That's St. Patrick's Day, of course, and March 18th as well. It's 2 nights only. Tickets are on sale now. You can go to iampatrick.com to see showtimes and reserve your seats. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Finally, a touching story out of Detroit is capturing hearts and leading people to church. John Karakian and his chocolate lab named Buddy became well known around metro area neighborhoods. And when Buddy died last March, John kept his spirit alive by continuing to walk through the neighborhoods, handing out pictures of Buddy with invitations to his church services. Over the course of 7 months, he handed out more than 2,000 Buddy cards, leading more than 200 people to his church. He told CBN News, quote, "If Buddy didn't pass away, none of this would have happened. I've been praying for the biggest revival in the history of the world, that God uses the Buddy Brigade to get the whole world saved." Well, maybe it'll take a dog to do that. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen today. Just email us at newswatch@cbn.com or reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. Until then, from all of us, have a great day and God bless you.